Long before pressure-treated lumber, plastic barriers, or synthetic sealants, medieval gardeners faced the same problem we face today: how to keep wood and soil from rotting in constant contact with moisture. Garden beds, tool handles, fence posts, trellises, storage bins, and raised growing platforms all had to survive rain, snow, and damp ground year after year. Replacing wood constantly wasn't an option. Trees took decades to grow, labor was slow, and waste was unacceptable, so medieval gardeners developed quiet, effective methods to prevent rot, methods that still work today, especially for gardeners trying to build healthier, longer-lasting systems without chemicals. What's striking is that these methods weren't based on coating wood with toxic substances. Instead, they focused on controlling moisture, airflow, soil contact, and biological balance. That same logic translates perfectly into modern gardening. They kept wood dry by design, not by coating. The biggest misconception is that rot happens because wood gets wet. In reality, rot happens when wood stays wet long enough for fungi to colonize it. Medieval gardeners understood this intuitively. Instead of sealing wood, they focused on keeping it dry as often as possible. Raised beds weren't flat-bottom boxes buried in soil. They were built on stone, gravel, or compacted sand. This allowed water to drain away quickly and prevented constant moisture from wicking into the wood. Even wooden planters were often elevated slightly, resting on stones or wooden blocks, so air could circulate underneath. Modern gardeners who place untreated lumber directly on soil create the exact conditions rot fungi love. Medieval builders avoided that contact entirely. The lesson is simple: separate wood from wet soil, and it lasts far longer than any painted surface ever will. One of the most overlooked medieval techniques was the use of mineral buffers between wood and soil. Ash, lime, sand, and crushed stone were commonly layered beneath garden structures. These materials did three important things at once. First, they improved drainage. Second, they altered pH in ways that slowed fungal growth. Third, they discouraged insects that carried decay organisms. Wood resting above a mineral layer dried faster and stayed biologically quiet. This is incredibly relevant today. Adding a layer of gravel, sand, or even wood ash beneath raised beds, cold frames, or wooden compost bins dramatically reduces rot without introducing toxins into your garden. Medieval gardeners weren't fighting decay, they were starving it of conditions it needed. Medieval gardeners didn't use random wood. They learned, through experience, which species survived damp conditions. Oak, chestnut, cedar, and larch were favored because they contain natural compounds that resist fungal attack. These woods weren't sealed or painted. They were left raw and allowed to weather naturally. This matters because, modern treated lumber tries to replicate what nature already built into certain trees. If you choose rot-resistant wood and combine it with proper drainage and airflow, you really don't need chemical preservatives at all. Even today, untreated cedar or larch raised beds routinely outlast painted pine beds by many years when built correctly. Another key difference is that medieval gardeners didn't panic at surface weathering. They understood that gray, aged wood is not rotten wood. Surface fibers breaking down actually help shed moisture and protect the denser inner structure. Modern gardeners often seal wood to keep it looking new, but they might not realize they're accidentally trapping moisture inside. Back in medieval times, gardeners allowed wood to breathe. This breathing actually prevented internal rot and, it really prolonged the life of garden structures far beyond what sealed wood can achieve. So, if your raised bed looks weathered but remains structurally sound, it's actually doing exactly what medieval builders expected it to do. Medieval gardens, interestingly enough, were designed to shed water away from structures. Beds were crowned just a bit, paths were sunken, and drainage channels moved excess water away. This method really reduced saturation near wooden edges. Today, many raised beds are built level with compacted soil beneath them, causing water to pool exactly where wood is most vulnerable. Simply shaping soil to encourage runoff can, double the life of untreated wood. It's a design issue, not a material issue. Healthy soil biology suppresses destructive fungi. Medieval gardeners enriched soil with compost, leaf mold, and manures that encouraged beneficial organisms. These microbes competed with decay fungi, slowing their spread into nearby wood. Dead, compacted soil fosters rot. Living soil resists it. This is why gardens with rich organic matter often see slower wood decay than gardens built over sterile subsoil. The soil ecosystem itself becomes part of the preservation system. Modern gardeners are rediscovering that chemical solutions often create new problems. Treated wood, for example, leaches toxins, paints can crack and trap moisture, and plastic liners disrupt soil life. Medieval methods, on the other hand, avoided all of that by working with natural processes instead of against them. By controlling moisture, airflow, drainage, wood choice, and soil biology, medieval gardeners built systems that lasted decades without poisoning the land. And honestly, those same principles apply perfectly to raised beds, compost bins, trellises, cold frames, and garden borders today. Rot isn't a failure of material, it's a failure of design. Medieval gardeners didn't fight rot with tar or paint because they didn't need to. They designed their gardens so rot struggled to survive. When you build with the same mindset, keeping wood dry, elevated, and biologically protected, you'll find that your garden structures last longer, your soil stays healthier, and your system becomes more resilient with every season.